Across Newcastle and the Hunter, 2NURFM 103.7 as we have a look at some of the things happening in the world of nutrition and dietetics. We do that with Professor Clare Collins from the University of Newcastle, who, Claire, you're already smiling. That means you've probably delved into your topic already, which is food that can make us all happy today. Good morning.
Yes, good morning. And Mark, there's a new Australian study out that's looking at the relationship between vegetables, fruit and happiness. And it's good news, which is why I'm smiling.
and maybe there's some of the ones that we've been eating a lot. If not, we probably need to get a few more of them into our diet, yeah?
Yes, that's exactly right. So the bottom line is that eating more fruit and vegetables is associated with greater levels of happiness, less worry, and less likely to be stressed. But this data from Australia comes from 8,000 adults who participated in the Oz DIAB study. Now, that was a study looking at the association with developing type 2 diabetes. So I think this is really positive news. And what they did was they measured perceived stress and all the scales that go along with that, as well as how much vegetables and fruit people usually eat. And the people who ate the most vegetables and fruit reported lower levels of stress and less likely to be missing joy. So they reported more joy in their life. So the bottom line is essentially, eat more vegetables and fruit.
Yeah, and normally you think that those things are unquantifiable, but they kind of really are. I'm going to throw in another one that may not have come up in the survey data here, Claire, but if you're eating more of the junk food and more convenience food, it's actually more expensive, really, than preparing meals with fruit and veggies at home. So those people are probably saving a few extra bucks as well.
Yes, that is a really important point. And that mirrors something that we showed ourselves. So we just completed this research study where we fed people the dietary guidelines goody two-shoes diet for 2 weeks.
Straight down the middle, yeah.
We got them to give us blood, urine, stool samples. And then we did the same thing for an average Australian diet, which is code for unhealthy. And one of the things that was really striking was by the end of the 2 weeks of the unhealthy diet, people were saying that they felt really bad. And this is now borne out with other research that we're seeing. So recently, another study where they did the same thing as us, but for the express purpose of measuring people's happiness levels, they fed people for 8 weeks, 7 serves of vegetables and fruit per day, which is the recommendation, and they found the same result, that when you feed people more vegetables and fruit, they spontaneously report higher levels of happiness and well-being. So it seems that the secret to being happier is actually in your fruit and veg box. And
it is something that I think deep down that we all really have at least a basic rudimentary understanding of. But I have to ask you, Claire, though, the things that were in the, in inverted commas, typical Aussie diet, the things that weren't making us feel as happy as the fruit and veg, what were a couple of things in that box?
Well, highly processed foods, so things like sausage rolls for dinner, fish and chips, pizza, so things that typically are not served with vegetables and fruit. But just coming back to that point, Mark, like it's easy to say eat, 49 serves, eat 7 serves of fruit and veg each day, but there are habits associated with that. We know from the last survey of how much money people spend on their groceries that one of the smallest proportions is actually vegetables and fruit. So of our weekly spend, it's only around 7%, less than 10%, but we spend about 50% on takeaways, the coffees, the Uber delivered meals, the meals out, the pubs and clubs and drive-through. So have a think about if you gave up one of those, you would have more money to spend at the supermarket. When we ask people about, why is it that we don't really purchase much veggies and fruit, most people say it's because it's too expensive. But 50% of what we spend is actually not on what we spend at the supermarket. So when you look at how do people who eat more vegetables and fruit, what do? There's a few secrets. They cook more at home and they have family meals at the dinner table. And children with higher veggies and fruit have parents who eat more veggies and fruit.
That novel idea of having the meal around the dinner table and not a prepackaged thing out in front of the television.
So families who have these meal routines are more likely to have healthier dietary patterns and then be sharing these feelings or benefits of happiness. But I think this is where grandparents can actually help. Most most of their children who are parents are way too busy. So when you get your grandkids to yourself, show them how to chop and prepare veggies and fruit. Maybe even send them home with a favourite, veggie dish that their parents, your children, grew up with. But also show them how to have those rituals, because it seems to be there's a fundamental understanding that when you eat food around the table, more vegetables appear at that meal. So you show your grandchildren how to set the table, how to put out the plates, the cutlery, and get them enjoying that so that they're then nagging their parents for this mealtime ritual, which seems to be traded off, for the big screen telly being on at the same time.
More of those habits, those healthy habits that will ultimately make us more happy. As always, a pleasure. Clare Collins, have a great day.
Yeah, pleasure.
Our Professor of Nutrition and Dietetics from the University of Newcastle on Food and Mood today. Professor Clare Collins there with us at 2NURFM 103.7.
A broadcast service of the University of Newcastle.